Tacos al pastor cooked in a Weber kettle grill. Today we're taking it outside of the test kitchen. Let's fire it up. I fell in love with tacos al pastor when I spent some time in Mexico. And traditionally, they're cooked on a vertical rotisserie, which is a little hard for most people to do. So I'm gonna show you a really cool technique, how to do it inside of a Weber grill using a Certified Angus Beef chuck roast.
Here we have our Certified Angus Beef chuck roast. They're a super common cut at the grocery store, and because of all that marbling, pack a ton of flavor. The first thing you'll need to do is start the marinade. Like many good Mexican sauces and marinades, we use dried chilies. We'll use guajillos for this particular marinade. Just clean them and soak them in hot water. We'll also use a whole bunch of fresh garlic. Just peel the paper. There's no need to chop since we're putting this all into a blender. This marinade uses fruit juices combined with vinegar, garlic, and a variety of spices to tenderize the meat. The first spice we use is going to be achiote. Achiote is traditionally an ingredient used for this marinade, but if you can't find it, you could substitute some paprika powder. The achiote will just add such a nice bright color and give it a sweet and peppery flavor. It's really worth seeking it out. After the oregano, we'll add the soaked chilies. They add such great flavor with just a touch of heat. I like to save a little of the soaking water to thin out the marinade if it gets too thick. Remove the plug from the lid of the blender and place a towel over top. This way, if you need to thin out the marinade, you could easily drizzle a little bit of that soaking water until it loosens up. This is a perfect consistency for this marinade because it'll coat the meat really nicely. Now it's time to slice up that chuck roast. Cut the chuck roast in half to make it easier to slice. Stand it on the cut side and slice as thinly as possible against the grain. You can put it in the freezer for about 30 minutes before cutting if you want to firm it up for easier slicing. Now we'll get the beef into the marinade. The acidity will really help to tenderize the beef and develop a ton of flavor. You'll really see the bright red color that comes from the soaked chilies and the achiote powder. Now get this well coated and refrigerate overnight. Now that this meat is well marinated, it's ready for the grill. But the first thing we're gonna need to do is some pineapple prep. I like to start with cutting the top and the bottom off the pineapple. Having a flat base will allow you to stand it up easily without it moving around while you're trying to trim up the sides. For the sides, just gently shave off the spiky skin while following the shape of the fruit. Once all the exterior has been trimmed off, you want to cut the pineapple into quarters. You need to cut through the woody core and remove it from the center of each quarter. They're not really an enjoyable part of the fruit to eat. The pineapple can be kind of slippery, so be careful when coring those pieces. Now, we'll use 2 skewers in the base of the pineapple to create the spit for our al pastor. Push the flat sides of the skewer into the pineapple so the points are facing up. This will help to pierce the meat when assembling our cone. Reserve 3 pieces of pineapple for later. We'll make a salsa out of that. I like to work on a sheet pan since this can get kind of messy. Now it's time to start stacking our marinated sliced chuck roast. You'll want to make this into the shape of a cone, using the widest pieces at the bottom and doubling them over if they're extremely long. Pinch the 2 skewers together when stacking so they don't separate as you slide the meat down the skewer. Continue to stack the meat as if you were attempting to make this into one solid mass of marinated meat magic. Try to assemble evenly so that it is well balanced and doesn't lean to one side or the other. You may have to fold and manipulate the slices of meat to get a consistent shape, but it's really important for even cooking. Once the skewers are almost full, you'll want to top it with that remaining quarter of a pineapple. Don't worry if you have a little meat left over, you could just saute this up for some appetizer tacos while you wait for this to cook.
My cone of beef is arranged nicely and my coals are good and hot. Now how I spread these coals and where I put this cone is going to be important to how this cooks.
I've heated all the charcoal in a chimney starter to make sure that they're hot and primed for the grill. Next, spread them around the base of the charcoal grate of the grill. We won't be using the top grate to cook on. We'll just make a nice charcoal circle to surround our beef. Using a sturdy metal spatula and some tongs, lower the cone into the very middle of the coals. it will be pretty hot in there, so some fire gloves would be a good idea as well. Now just let it roast in there for about an hour and a half or until it reaches 150 degrees internally. We'll use 2 of the remaining pieces of pineapple to make a pineapple pico de gallo. Now it's time to add the store-bought pico to our pineapple. You could make your own if you wanted to, but this makes such a bright and clean addition to such a rich and flavorful taco. I checked my taco tower and saw that it was starting to lean, so I bent a hanger to secure it to the side from which it was falling away. Sometimes you have to get a little MacGyver with your cooking techniques. I'll wrap some tortillas in foil to warm them up in the grill after the cone is finished cooking through. Now that the meat is cooked and everything has a little bit of char on it, it's time to remove the cone using a sturdy metal spatula. Place it directly on a wooden cutting board to rest. You'll want to let those juices redistribute just like it was a roast. After you remove that charred pineapple, make sure to slide the meat down the skewers so that it keeps intact and has a sturdy base. An easy way to warm up those tortillas is just to toss that foil packet right into the coals. The key to cutting the cone is to slice extremely thin, working down the side of the beef. Shaving it off thinly will ensure a tender bite. The charred pineapple from the top adds some great flavor to the taco and will be a perfect garnish at the end. Make sure your tortillas are warm and pliable, but keep an eye on them because the coals are pretty hot and you don't want them to burn. Before constructing the tacos, I like to mix all the shaved meat together so that you get a little bit of the charred exterior along with the moist and delicious interior slices. Now we'll top with a little bit of that charred pineapple. I can't wait to dig into these tacos. They're seriously one of my favorite foods. Finally, we're gonna add some of that fresh and tangy pineapple pico de gallo, and then I like to top it with a few leaves of cilantro. You can't get much of a better taco than this.
So if you're craving authentic tacos al pastor, with a little improvised equipment and a classic kettle grill, you can make tacos al pastor in your own backyard. Now I get to dig into one of these tacos. A little bit of char from that charcoal all around. You get a little bit of smoke off of that. It just really gets a full flavor to that. So good. So remember to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on another one of our test kitchen videos from Certified Angus Beef.